Good evening, good morning, good night, whatever time it is for you. And so this is the video version of my Substack essay talking about universality and leftist outrage. What does that mean exactly? So basically, what I'm arguing is that we as leftists have the universality, meaning that we essentially, because of what we are advocating for, when you think about it, universal human experiences, universal human desires, and so on and so forth, that we should be able to essentially talk turkey with anyone and recruit anyone using their own culture or religion to bring them in to the left. And so it's sort of one of those things where I've always been struck by the need for many leftists to try and make atheists of people. And I get it. It's edgy. It's whatever blah blah blah. But I'm not really interested in that. It's not going to happen. The Muslim and Christian masses are increasing, and they are comrades essentially. And so we shoot ourselves in the foot when we sort of play this game of like, you have to be an atheist and all this sort of nonsense. Rather, what I'm going to argue is that we can use the conservative doctrines and theologies of the world's cultures and religions to argue for the goals of the international left, that everything that we want, broad economic justice, global solidarity, class liberation, these are not only compatible with, but one could even argue, at least in terms of outcome, mandated by all of the world's great traditions, religions, cultures, and so on and so forth. And so that is the perspective that I'm coming at this with. And so my first point that I want to begin with is Mao Zedong, and in particular his notion of the mass line, universality without cultural uniformity. So, at the heart of Mao's political philosophy is the mass line, the circulation of political life like blood through a body. Mao once said, quote, from the masses to the masses, end of quote. So the idea moves like oxygen through veins. Political movements do not manufacture the people's pulse. They feel it in the arteries of everyday life and send it back through the body stronger. Every community, religious or secular, traditional, modern, already carries the ache of exploitation in its bones, rent pressing on the ribs, debt gnawing at the teeth, wages draining like blood from a wound. Mao insisted that revolution must begin in the living body of daily existence, not in doctrines hammered down like false teeth from above. That means peasants may keep their traditions like marrow in their bones. Workers may keep their religions like breath in their lungs. Communities may keep their cultural forms like tongues in their mouths. What matters is shared material struggle, beating in the same chest. Thus, the Maoist insight, class experience pulses through the body before ideology reaches the tongue. If exploitation runs through the veins of every society, then the thirst for justice flows through them as well. The task of politics is not to graft identical skins onto everyone, but to connect the circulatory systems of struggle already alive inside different bodies. So that's point number one. Point number two, and this is where I bring in Martin Heidegger, the Nazi philosopher. Heidegger, the world appears through our ways of being. Here, Martin Heidegger offers a strange philosophical echo, like a nerve firing beneath the skin, kind of like when you have like this sort of nerve in your tooth and it's just aching, like, it's sort of, this is the insight that he brings, where it's a sort of thing. Okay, so Martin Heidegger once said, quote, language is the house of being, end of quote. Now, before we go any further, I want to explain what exactly it is Martin Heidegger means by that. So, when he spells being with a capital B, what he's talking about is the human relationship to being, the human conception of being. That is what he's concerned with, and that's what he means by uppercase being. Whereas lowercase being is more like these debates around the multiverse and things like that. Martin Heidegger is not so much interested in if time is linear or if it's, part of this four-dimensional block or whatever other crazy nonsense cosmologists have come up with nowadays, but rather what Martin Heidegger is interested in is the human relationship to time, the human perception of time, the human relationship to existence, and so on and so forth. And so when he spells things like time or being and so on and so forth with a capital letter at the beginning, that is what he's talking about, is the human-centered being or human-centered time. So that is what he means by language as the house of being, that being that our relationship to being and time is shaped by our language. It's sort of, our language creates that house in which we conceptually exist. So language in this sense is not merely sound on the tongue, but the mouth and jaw through which reality is chewed and tasted. Human beings encounter the world through the myths, words, and rituals that move through their throats like saliva. You cannot rip those organs out and expect the body to keep speaking. If a socialist movement demands that everyone becomes secular, culturally Western, or philosophically uniform, it is essentially asking people to pull out their own tongues and replace them with another person's teeth. Maoist politics instead asks, what does justice taste like in each mouth? For a Christian worker, it may taste like the dignity of the poor. For a Muslim debtor, it may taste like justice against usury. For a Buddhist tenant, it may taste like compassion against exploitation. Different tongues, same hunger in the stomach. So, point 3 that I want to get to, the anime toro hedoro. And I believe this to be a metaphor for class solidarity. So, for those of you that are anime fans, such as myself, Doro Hetoro is a wonderful, wonderful anime, and let's get into it. So, the world of Doro Hetoro offers a visceral metaphor for this politics, a landscape that feels less like a map and more like a bruised body. The story contains two radically different worlds. The whole, a wounded torso of a city where ordinary humans struggle to keep breath in their lungs, and the sorcerer world, a glittering skull of elites who slice into that body like surgeons performing cruel experiments. Yet the inhabitants of the whole are wildly different organs within the same battered organisms. Criminals, cooks, fighters, strange figures like Cayman and Nikaido. They do not share a single ideology. Their thoughts are scattered like teeth in different jaws. What they share is a condition felt in their flesh. Their solidarity grows not from identical philosophies, but from a shared wound inflicted from above. Even the sorcerer factions, like the organization run by N, behave like a ruling nervous system, controlling the body, strange, theatrical, and powerful, yet united through domination. The lesson mirrors Mahatma Mao's insight as, quote, classes are defined by their position in the living body of material relations, not by cultural similarity, end of quote. So, number 4, come as you are. The mess line is coalition politics. If we stretch this insight across the globe, a strategic principle emerges like a skeleton beneath the skin. Invite people into struggle without demanding they transplant their organs. The movement should say, come as a Muslim worker with prayer on your tongue. Come as a Christian tenant with scripture on your ribs. Come as a Hindu farmer with tradition in your marrow. Come as an atheist student without doubt between your teeth. What binds them is not the metaphysics, but their shared circulation through the systems of rent, wages, and debt. A Maoist formulation might be: number one, start with people's real grievances, the aches in their joints and stomachs. Number two, organize around them, link the arteries together. Number three, let ideology grow organically like new tissue around healed wounds. This is how Mao built alliances in China: workers, peasants, intellectuals, small merchants, each with different beliefs, beating in their chests. Number five, Martin Heidegger again. So, authentic politics emerges from the people, from the world people already live in. So, Martin Heidegger once said, quote, only a God can save us, end of quote. It's a very interesting statement, and I can get into this another time, but I believe he was correct. But we need to get into that another time because there's a lot to unpack with that statement. Although he's definitely right, indeed, only a God can save us. So, whatever one thinks of the statement, it hints at something bodily. Human beings do not live by economic calories alone. They live by meanings that move through their nerves, hearts, and lungs. A politics that ignores those organs becomes skeletal and brittle. A politics that works through them becomes living flesh. Number six, the hetero lesson. So, strange people, same struggle. What makes hetero compelling is that solidarity forms among people who look like mismatched limbs stitched onto the same creature. Because survival in the whole requires the body to act as one, they move together. A global movement of workers, tenants, and debtors might resemble that creature, plural like organs in a body, chaotic like nerves firing in different directions, and philosophically inconsistent like tongues speaking many languages, yet united by the same blood pressure of exploitation. The Maoist conclusion that we can draw from all of this. So, from Mao's perspective, the conclusion is almost anatomical. The universal interests do not require identical skins. Economic justice is universal because exploitation circulates everywhere. Wage dependence pumps through societies like blood. Rent presses on the ribs of cities everywhere. Debt seeps into households like poison in the kidneys. Therefore, the strongest strategy is not ideological sterilization, but mass inclusion, the joining of bodies into one organism of struggle. Put simply, the revolution should sound less like a lecture and more like an open mouth calling others to the table. Come as you are. Bring your language. Bring your faith, your traditions. The struggle will chew them together and give them a common bite. No reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.